Hospitals are strange places. We think of them as places of healing, of safety. But once the sun goes down and the halls grow quiet, something changes. The line between life and death grows thin, and sometimes something steps across it. My name is Ryan, and I used to work the night shift at St. Icarus General Hospital. This story isn't fiction. It's not some urban legend. It's what really happened to me. I wish I'd never taken that job. But more than that, I wish I'd followed every single one of the rules. I give my story to a name. The name is Cliffhanger. I started working night shift at St. Icarus General 6 months ago. It wasn't my first hospital job. I'd done graveyard shifts before, orderly work, patient transfers, light custodial help when needed. But St. Icarus, it was different. You don't hear about it unless you know someone who's worked there. It's not even on Google Maps. Located just off Route 19, surrounded by thickets of pine and old farmland. No signs, no lights along the road. Just a long driveway and a cracked old sign. St. Icarus General St. 1911. From the outside, the place looked like it hadn't seen a paint job since the Cold War. Inside, though, everything was spotless, like they were trying too hard to cover something up. I was desperate at the time, bills piling up, rent overdue. So when I got the offer and the pay looked generous, I took it. I didn't even blink when the HR rep said, "You'll need to follow the orientation rules precisely. Non-compliance results in immediate termination, or worse." I thought she was joking. The rules. They gave me a laminated sheet the moment I stepped into the break room. No smile, no small talk, just the paper. Read. St. Icarus General Hospital, Night Staff Protocols. Effective immediately upon clock-in, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. 1. Never use the third-floor elevator after midnight. If it arrives on its own and opens, close it manually and walk away. Do not look inside. 2. Patients in room 304 are not real. If you receive a call light or hear voices from 304, ignore them. The room is empty. Always has been. 3. Do not allow the woman in the old-fashioned nurse's uniform to assist you. She is not on staff. If she speaks to you, do not respond. Do not follow her. 4. At 2:33 a.m. exactly, turn off all overhead lights for 60 seconds. Do not look outside during this time. Do not answer any knocks. 5. You must never feed the patient in room B13. He doesn't need food. He only asks to test you. 6. The chapel doors must remain locked from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. If you find them open, lock them immediately and do not look inside. 7. If a code blue is called in the basement morgue, do not respond. No one should be down there. Not anymore. I read it twice. Then again. I thought it was a prank. Some weird hazing ritual for new night shift workers. But when I looked up, the others in the break room, 2 nurses, a janitor, and the overnight doc, they all stared at me with stone faces. The janitor, Hector, was the first to speak. Follow the rules. Don't get curious. Don't try to be brave. First night. That first night passed quietly enough. I shadowed Nurse Tanya, a 40-something woman who smoked too much and didn't talk unless she had to. Around 11:45 p.m., we were stocking meds on the second floor when the overhead speakers dinged softly. Ding. Third floor elevator arriving. We both froze. I looked at Tanya. She just shook her head and walked away faster than I thought she could move. I was curious, stupidly curious. I crept to the stairwell and peeked toward the elevator shaft. Sure enough, the elevator doors were wide open. Inside stood nothing. Just dim, yellowish light. But the air around it was wrong, too still. Like even the dust didn't dare float through it. I backed away. I didn't look inside. I remembered rule number 1. Just barely. Room 304. At 1:14 a.m., I passed room 304 on the third floor during rounds. It looked normal enough. The door was shut. But as I passed, I heard a soft knock from inside. Then, a whisper. "Nurse, I'm cold." I froze. I remembered rule number 2. Patients in room 304 are not real. I kept walking. Then came the scratching from the inside. Nails on the glass panel. I didn't look back. Later I asked Hector about it. He just said, "They're stuck in between. Don't listen to them." The old-fashioned nurse. Night 4, 2:10 a.m. I was alone near the ICU waiting for labs when I saw her. She wore a crisp, white 1940s nurse's uniform, hat and all. Her hands were folded neatly. She smiled and said, "Can I help you find something, dear?" I remembered rule number 3 and didn't answer. I turned and walked the other way. As I did, I heard her say behind me, "That's all right. I'll help you later." I swear I felt cold fingers brush my back. The 2:33 lights. By my 5th night, I knew to prepare for the 2:33 ritual. I turned off the overhead lights at exactly 2:32 and 50 seconds a.m. and stood still in the break room. Total darkness. My phone turned off. Not even emergency lights were on. Just black. I heard them that night. The tapping on the windows. The scratching. The low growl of something large sniffing along the outer walls. Something knocked once. Then twice. Then something laughed. It wasn't human. After exactly 60 seconds, the hallway lights came back on automatically. I waited 5 more minutes before moving again. Room B13. Night 7. B13 was in the psych wing. Always locked. Always quiet. Until that night. At 4:12 a.m., I heard screaming echo through the east wing. I ran with Nurse Tanya and found the door to B13 ajar. A man sat inside, emaciated, pale, with wild eyes. "They forget to feed me," he whispered. "You're not like the others. You'll feed me, won't you?" I said nothing. Tanya yanked the door shut and locked it twice. "Don't answer him," she said. "If you feed him, he remembers your face." The morgue incident. By week 2, I'd seen enough to want to quit. But something kept pulling me back. Maybe it was the money. Maybe it was the whispers I'd begun hearing in my dreams. That's when the code blue came. 3:46 a.m. The loudspeaker crackled. Code blue. Morgue level. I froze. No one should have been in the basement morgue. I remembered rule number 7. Tanya ran to the intercom and shut it off. "Don't listen. They do that to lure us." But someone did listen. A new nurse named Cassidy. She was fresh out of nursing school, full of energy and doubt. She thought it was some emergency. She didn't know the rules yet. Before anyone could stop her, she was in the elevator heading down. We never saw her again. Not really. 2 nights later, the 3rd floor elevator opened on its own at 2 a.m. Inside stood Cassidy. Her face was pale. Her eyes black and weeping. She didn't speak. Just stood there until the doors closed again. I should have quit. I wanted to. But something had started to change in me. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. And worst of all, I started seeing things outside of work. Reflections that didn't match, phone calls with static and breathing on the other end. My dog wouldn't go near me anymore. Then came the final straw. I was assigned a patient, just a routine check. But when I entered the room, it was me lying in the bed. Well, hooked to machines. Eyes open. And my own voice whispered, "You're not supposed to be here yet." That's when I realized the hospital doesn't just take lives. It keeps them. And some rules aren't made to protect you. They're made to protect what's inside. That was my first story working night shift at St. Icarus General. In second story, things get worse. Much worse. Because I didn't just break one of the rules. I broke all of them. Subscribe to Dark Horror Bytes. If you didn't subscribe yet, you will miss most horror and true creepy stories. So let's start the second story. In my first story, I told you about the night shift job I took at St. Icarus General, a hospital that operates under a very strict and terrifying set of rules. Rules that were never meant to be broken. But I did break them. And now, I'm telling you the rest of the story. This is what happened when I stopped following the rules. The night after I saw myself lying in that hospital bed, I quit. At least I tried to. I didn't go back to the hospital. I ignored calls. I threw the rule sheet in the trash. But St. Icarus doesn't let you leave. Not really. Then happened the house incident. That night at home, around 3 a.m., I woke up to my apartment lights flickering. The hallway light was on, even though I never leave it on. My dog was barking violently at the front door. I grabbed my phone. No signal. No power. Just static and a voicemail notification. I pressed play. Ryan, it's Tanya. I know you're trying to leave, but it doesn't work like that. Follows you. Just come back tonight. Finish the shift. Close your circle. Please, before it decides to finish it for you. Then silence. That's when I saw them, footprints. Wet, bare footprints leading from my front door into my living room. I hadn't let anyone in. The TV turned on by itself. Black and white static. Then a familiar voice came through. Room 304 is waiting, Ryan. Return to St. Icarus. I don't know why I went back. Maybe it was fear. Maybe something already had a hold on me. When I arrived at 6:57 p.m., the front doors were already unlocked. No one was at the reception desk. The hallway lights were dimmer than usual and the air was thick, like the building itself was breathing. The moment I clocked in, the rule sheet was sitting on the break room table again. Same font, same yellowing paper, same 7 horrifying commandments. But this time, someone had written a new rule at the bottom in red ink. 8. You've already broken the rules. Finish what you started, or become part of them. I turned to leave, but the break room door was gone. There was just a wall. The patients who weren't there. 1:22 a.m. I was alone on the second floor when I noticed the beds in rooms 210, 211, and 213 were all filled. But those rooms had been empty for weeks. Each bed held a patient, completely still, unmoving. They looked like wax figures. Well, eyes wide open, not blinking, not breathing. Each of them had my name on their wristbands, Ryan Caldwell, dinner, 2:19 a.m. That's when I realized these weren't patients. They were versions of me, each in a slightly different state, injured, older, bleeding, burned. Each had died a different way. And outside room 213, scrawled in blood on the door, pick one. I ran. The nurse who knew too much. I found Tanya that night. She was holed up in the security room, chain smoking, her eyes wide and red. She barely looked human anymore. They're thinning the veil, she said. Every time someone breaks a rule, they get closer. You're the worst of us, Ryan. I asked her what the hospital was. She hesitated, then finally whispered, St. Icarus is a trap, built on ground that doesn't belong to this world. A gate. They hide behind hospital walls, behind healing and hope. But at night it's theirs. They feed on attention, fear, people who try to help. Every rule is a seal. You've broken too many. Now you need to make a choice, before sunrise, or you'll never leave. The basement revisited. I went to the morgue. I don't know why. I think I was looking for answers, or a way out. The lights down there were dead. The air cold. I passed the freezer doors. Each one thumped softly, like something inside was knocking to be let out. I reached the old incinerator room. The door was open. Inside was Nurse Cassidy. What was left of her. She sat cross-legged in the middle of the room, skin translucent, eyes black, lips sewn shut. She held a clipboard and pointed to it. I approached slowly. There were names written on the list. Mine was next to the word pending. Suddenly the lights went red. Sirens blared. Code blue. Code blue. Room B13. It echoed, and this time, I went. Room B13, door opened. The door was wide open. Inside, the emaciated man sat smiling in his restraints. You're late, Ryan, but it's okay. You're already mine. He stood up. The restraints melted off him like water. The walls began to bleed. The floor pulsed. He reached out his hand. Feed me, and you can go free. Someone else will take your place. Behind him, I saw the shadows, twisted, clawed, waiting. Dozens of them, each whispering my name. I ran. The final rule. 2:33 a.m. came. I shut off the lights. This time, I hid in a supply closet. No windows. But this time, something was already in there with me. I could hear its breathing. Close. Wet. Fast. Then a voice directly behind me. You can't hide in the dark, Ryan. We are the dark. I bolted back into the hallway. Everything was upside down, literally. The halls curved. Gravity bent. The fluorescent lights flickered like candlelight. And then I saw it, the chapel doors. Open. The one rule that could never be broken. The chapel. 3:02 a.m. I stepped inside. It was not a chapel anymore. It was an auditorium of shadows, pews filled with eyeless bodies. At the pulpit stood the old-fashioned nurse. Her head rotated 180 degrees to face me. Her smile stretched impossibly wide. You broke the rules, Ryan. All of them. Now you must choose your role. She pointed behind me. 3 doors had appeared. One marked patient, one marked staff, and one marked foundation. You already know what patient means, she whispered. If you choose staff, you'll keep working. Forever. No sleep. No rest. But if you choose foundation, you become part of the walls, the rules, the watchers. You join us. I was shaking. I didn't want to choose any of them. But the chapel began to collapse around me. The audience rose from the pews. They began to scream. I chose staff. That was 3 years ago. I still work night shift at St. Icarus. I haven't aged. I haven't left. I watch new hires come in. I try to warn them. Some listen. Most don't. Every night I follow the rules perfectly. Because now, I know what happens if you don't. There's one last thing you should know. The rules, they change. And last night, I saw a new one printed on the sheet. Rule number 9. If you ever tell anyone this story, they'll come for you next. I chose to tell you anyway, because someone has to warn the rest. If you see a hospital with no address, if it finds you, turn away. Or else you'll have to choose, just like I did. Subscribe to Dark Horror Bytes, and never ever break the rules.